Everybody, LK here today, once again, with Lord Jonathan Tene. And today we're going to be looking at one of the archetypes in Street Fighter 6. We're going to be talking about Shotos. So if you don't know what a Shoto is, these are the characters that are the well-rounded, can play at any range, has a fireball, and an anti-air. And the first character we're going to be looking at in this archetype is Ryu.
So Ryu's obviously like the, poster child for Street Fighter. He's the most standard character. In this game, his main thing that he does different is that he has Denjin charge, which means that he can spend 50-ish frames to empower his next Hadouken, his fireball. And then that'll mean that he'll win fireball wars, which means there's just two dudes throwing fireballs at each other, right? And it also will give it more damage and be more advantageous. And then he also has higher than average cash out damage if he spends a lot of resource, either drive gauge or meter on his combos.
And the next Shoto we're going to look at is Ken, who is not Ryu's brother. They are friends, probably. He's the more aggressive of the two classic Street Fighter Shotos, so his fireball typically is not as good as Ryu's. He has more aggressive and unique tools to compensate. So for example, he has a Rekka special move, the Jinrai kick. He has a better air tatsu. He has a quote-unquote neutral skip tool. So when you hear people talk about neutral skip, they're usually talking about a move that quickly sends the character at you with an attack. It could be safe, it could be not safe. It's just something that's a traveling hitbox, a traveling attack towards you. And he has that in the Dragon Lash kick, which goes over lows, and the heavy version is plus. So he gets to play a similar game to what you would expect Ryu to play, but he's not as good at the defensive side of it. He compensates by being able to go in more and has some slightly trickier mix-ups.
So next up is Luke, and they've been really pushing this character. He's on the box of the game and not Ryu, which says a lot, right? That's because he's kind of the most beginner friendly of the Shotos, I think. Sandblast is a pretty unique projectile in that it goes almost full screen, but it's really fast. So that's gonna be really strong against other fireball characters, of course, right? He has really strong target combos, which means he'll cancel his light punch into his medium punch and his heavy punch, right? Stuff like that, like a magic series from Marvel or something like that, which means his conversions are kind of more streamlined, and he has some really strong advancing moves to make whiff punishing easier as well for beginners. Not to say that he's not good for advanced players, because he is actually really good. He's probably the best character to pick if you really don't know who to play and you're starting out and you don't think any character speaks to you.
So next we're going to talk about ChunLi. So the past three characters, Ryu and Ken, are kind of poster boys. They're even Smash and stuff like that. Next we're going to talk about ChunLi, which most people at a glance wouldn't call her Shoto, but she does have a couple of the main tools that we tend to define Shotos with, which she has a strong fireball and a good anti-air game. She's really good in the mid-range. Her offense is kind of unique in that she doesn't have a throw loop, but she has really good walk speed. She's really good at whiff punishing. She has a lot of tricky strike throw mix-ups and tricky combos and follow-ups. She's uniquely pretty hard to play in this game too, because she has two stances and she has a ton of moves, and a lot of the moves she has, you have to use them in really specific situations. So if you react properly and you do the right thing, you'll get a really good payout. But if you're too slow to pick the right option or something, then you're not going to get the type of return that you want. She's actually pretty difficult to play in this game, but very rewarding.
So next up is Guile, and Guile's a classic charge character. He's definitely the most donor type Shoto, which we'll get to later, right? But his fireball is Sonic Boom, which is the strongest fireball in the game, but you can't do it while going forward because it's a charge motion, which means you have to be, holding back for a while before you can actually use it. And then he has his, flash kick, anti-air, or slash reversal, which is also really good. And then he can set up Sonic Blade, which is kind of a thing you shoot your Sonic Boom through, make it bigger, and then win fireball wars. Basically, his whole toolkit is based around how he zones you out with Sonic Boom, just because it's such a strong fireball. It has, I think, 10 to 15 frames less total than standard Hadouken, which is insane. You can shoot his fireballs over and over again a lot faster.
Okay, so next up is DJ. DJ is kind of a half Shoto, half rushdown type character because he has a lot of elements from both archetypes. It's kind of also why we put him last in this group. So his H fireball has 2 hits to win meterless fireball wars, and he has a fake fireball as well. So starting from Street Fighter 5, there's always been anti-projectile moves, but in fighting games in general, and of course in Street Fighter, they've been making anti-projectile moves stronger and stronger. And usually you try to use these on reaction to projectiles. So one thing that's really tricky about DJ is the audio's cue is different for the fake fireball. Come on! Slash! But the animation, the beginning, looks exactly the same as his normal fireball. So if you are trying too much to twitch react to his projectile, he does a feint, that's very, very bad news for you. He has great pressure, the best drive rust in the game. If you've seen any of the memes online of him sliding in on there, and he does a ton of damage as well. So his main flaw really is that compared to other Shotos, his pokes aren't cancelable, so they can be weak to drive impact, but in my opinion, a lot of the strengths definitely outweigh that weakness.
Yeah, those are all the Shotos, in our opinion, in SF6. They're pretty similar to each other for the most part. Skills between them will transfer like very well if you want to like try multiple. They still do have things that differentiate them. Let us know like who your favorite Shoto is, and maybe if you don't think DJ is a Shoto in the comments.